I get so many people saying, bro, what are the Jags going to do for the draft? I don't know, but I'll give you my best educated guess right here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what is happening? What is up with y'all today on Locked On Jaguars? I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We're at your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Quick reminder, we are free to subscribe to over on our YouTube page. Make sure you go over, hit the like button, hit the bell button so you get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Make sure you subscribe also. And then wherever you're subscribed to for your audio podcast, when you listen to podcasts when you're not supposed to be at work or you're driving or you can't watch, make sure you tap into that location every single day so you don't miss an episode of the show. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Shout out to the everydayers for being everydayers, and you can be an everydayer. All you got to do is just be an everydayer. My man Josh came up to me today at my other place of revenue collection and told me he listens to the show every single day, man. So I told him I'm going to give you a shout out, and I did not forget. What's up, Josh? All right, so let's get into it. So many people are constantly asking me, Wig, what are the Jags going to do? In fact, I did a mini version of a mailbag, and I'll read some of those questions to you. I'm going to read some of those questions to you also to let you know. And this is not picking on the people for the questions. I'm glad you asked those questions. I'm really, really glad that you asked those questions. But I'm going to show you the level that people are craving to find out exactly what this team is going to do. And the questions, and these are some of the mild ones now that I get that I have no idea what the answer is. But I will tell you this, it feels good that you guys come to me with those questions to give my best educated guess on what they'll do. Now, if you say, who is he? I'm going to tell you who I am, or I'm going to tell you part of who I am. I can't tell you the whole story. Can't give you the whole spiel here in these 31 minutes. But I will tell you this. I look at tendencies. The Jaguars' tendencies are not as transparently easy to grab a hold on to under this administration. And I'm going to tell you why that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because you need discretion when it comes to making draft picks. You don't need to show your hand. You need to, you need to be unpredictable. Now, the flip side of that is there's no proven track record that really works except in the first round, but there's no proven track record that'll give you some sort of an idea of what their blueprint, their fingerprint, or their DNA is when it comes to the draft. The one thing you do know is that Trent Baalke loves his traits, right? He loves his traits. So there's one thing that's a little old school about Trent that I really do believe in. I do think the bigger and stronger you are, the better you'll be in the long run. So that'll lead us to go through this show and think. In segment 2, we'll juxtapose this. We'll put this on you. Do they build for a year, not for the future? I'm going to tell you why. Building for the future doesn't mean that you're ignoring the year, because the year isn't here yet. The year is a part of your future. It's a part of your future that's closer to you than the rest of the future. But so many people want them to make a draft pick that allows them to do certain things this year, this season, line up this year. And I don't think that that's the smartest way for a franchise to move. So we'll discuss that in segment 2. And then what's missing? What's missing from the team? I don't think anything is missing for them to go out and line up and play. And I think that was one of the goals that they set out for in free agency. But what I will tell you is this. If there's going to be something missing long term, I'm going to tell you what it is in segment 3. I'm not going to give it to you right now, but I'm going to go right back up to the top and say, who should the Jags target? The answer would be no one, but I'm not going to play those semantics with you. I'm not going to, put y'all through all of those hoops. when I say, if somebody asks me who should they target, I know what you're saying. So I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I'm the smartest dude in the room, and it's beneath me to answer that question. What I am going to do is tell you that when they're sitting there at 17 at the positions that we have discussed, and those positions are wide receiver, defensive back, defensive line, right? The defensive back being corner, and a defensive line meaning either interior or exterior. Doesn't matter to me. Their starters are set, in my opinion, right now to go line up. Their starters are set at every one of those spots. I'm going to tell you the person, not the position, the person that I believe the Jaguars, I'm going to do it in just a second too. The Jaguars, the person that they could target who will reasonably be there at 17. Now, you can argue that he won't. But for the sake of this, I'm not going to include Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not going to include, of course, I'm not including a quarterback. I'm not going to include Malik Neighbors. I'm not going to include Rome Odunze because I think they'll be gone, right? There's one person that if he's sitting there, he settles, that he's reasonably there, that he settles this positional value argument for me. That's Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. If Quinyon Mitchell is there, he is my pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just think that he's not Jalen Ramsey, because if he was, he'd be going in the top 5. But what he is to me is he is a slightly more physical and maybe slightly more athletic version of A.J. Boye. That is a very, very good football player and a better, more athletic version, and we getting him in his first contract might mean that Quinyon Mitchell is a Pro Bowl version of A.J. Boye, and we're getting him early. Listen to me. That kid can absolutely play. Before I knew he was invited to the Senior Bowl, I started doing my studies about at the final third or the final quarter of last season. Like I try to just watch college football and enjoy it, but I do take mental notes, but that's not scouting. Watching just YouTube videos is not scouting. You have to get a little deeper than that. You got to watch game tape and watch that person. Just watch him, because there'll be a lot of bad in it. There'll be plays where a guy loafs. There'll be plays where the competition isn't as high. And that's what I started doing. And when I noticed that name kept popping up, and I looked at his background and found he was a Florida kid who just was lightly recruited, like Khalil Mack, real two-starish, and went to Toledo, and body changed, attitude changed. And then I watched him against good teams. I watched him against Ohio State. And I wasn't convinced that he wasn't the best defensive player on the field. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl and he proves it again. And people rave about him all week. They started raving about him day one the same way that they were raving about Deebo Samuel. And I was telling everybody how good Deebo was as a second-round pick. Quinyon Mitchell, to me, represents strength, power, chippiness, tackling ability, in your face, get after it. He smells and looks and smells. And I say smell, I don't smell him. I ain't never been close to him. But he looks and smells and feels like a dude that's going to be a 10-year corner that everybody's talking about as one of the best in the league. That's why, in my opinion, there aren't no questions about him. They ain't worried about him tackling like they do Nate Wiggins. You know, not worried about it, whether or not he benefited from having all these great players around him like they do some of the guys at Alabama. I'm a big Terrion Arnold. I'm a big Kool-Aid McKinstry fan as well. And I do like Nate Wiggins. And I think Nate Wiggins will make less of those business decisions once he gets to the NFL. But for me, the guy that I think, present and future, day one, makes this team absolutely better is Quinyon Mitchell. And I think he is the one person at these critical positions that comes in right away and he challenges everybody. He makes it to the point where you cannot keep him off of the field. And I'm not talking about in a slot. I'm talking about outside. Either Tyson Campbell's going to keep getting better and growing, or Quinyon Mitchell is going to be over there and Ronald Darby is going to see him just neck and neck with him. At some point, they may go, hey, Ron, we need you to do what you did in the past and just be a veteran and be that dude. And you're going to play a lot because we're going to be in dime a whole bunch, but we can't keep him off the field. He's too good. That's what competition is. And I do believe Quinyon Mitchell is the dude for me. Anyway, that's the person I'm the biggest fan. I'm not sure he's going to be there, but reasonably, I think if you're a Jaguar fan, you could at least plan on maybe having Quinyon Mitchell. Why do I think there's a distinction between building for a year and building for the future, and then why I believe you can do them both at the same time? I will answer that question in the second segment here on Locked On Jaguars. First, I got to let you know that today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the absolute truth, man. I'm telling you, all you got to do is just go on FanDuel's site and pay attention. Read, study the literature. They give you all of the ins and outs because it's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. And the NHL is so fun in the playoffs. Baseball's in full swing. The Yankees got beat last night. And thank you very much for not closing that game out. But FanDuel is your place for every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, thank you for joining me here on segment 2 of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. All right, we got it out of the way. I said Quinyon Mitchell is my guy that I could not pass him up at all. And I say that to say this, reasonably. That means Jared Verse is probably still there. That means Johnny Newton is still there. That means maybe 2 of the other corners is still there. That even means Adonai Mitchell is right there. And I still said, nope, I'm taking Quinyon. My reasoning for that, just real quick, this is a whole nother show, but my reasoning for that is this. He gives you the best long-term help because and I just like him, not just a position. And that's why people say, I'll take a corner first, I take a wide receiver. That's not necessarily true with me. No, I take Quinyon Mitchell. See, so I look at guys not just by positions, I look at them by who they are as a person. It's not square filling because you can say I take a corner, but what if it's the wrong one? What if it's a corner who's not as good as the other guy, right? Who was that Philadelphia took and Justin Jefferson was on the board? Was it Arcega or Whiteside or whatever the kid's name, the little tiny receiver that they took, and Justin Jefferson was sitting right there. So that I look at stuff like that and people go, well, I take the wide out first, and then I come back in the second round and take the D tackle, and then no, I take the right person first. Not just the wide out, not just the corner. I take Quinyon. Because if Quinyon isn't there, I might change positions and say take A.D. Mitchell. Because I'm not just building my team based on filling squares. I'm building it based on those people. They don't just go and say, okay, we're going to put a cornerback in the Hall of Fame this year. We're going to put a tackle. No, they go for people. Who are the dudes that we're putting in? That's the way you win games. You win games with who those guys are, not the position that they play. So do you build it for a year? There are some people that want to draft based on how the Jaguars are able to line up this year. And I get it because you're trying to envision the way that the team is going to be able to compete in the year that's the closest one to you. And that's the one that's coming up. And I understand that. And it's not necessarily wrong to think that just because you draft a person or a player that is more ready to play and helps you this year more, it's not like that dude's going to stop helping you after one season. All right, so, we're not going to be silly here. But my thing is, you also have to have an eye for the future. You also have to have an eye for your roster. That is what people talk when they discuss team building. This is not a whole bunch of individual seasons. It is, but it isn't. It's not a whole bunch of individual seasons from a team building standpoint. They don't get a chance to reboot and start over. When you draft these players and they're under contract, if they suck, you're stuck. If they don't suck, you still have to look at how college coaches do it. Yeah, they recruit the top 60 guys in America, no matter where you are. And they don't just take the first 25. As they get commitments that they really believe in, they start snatching. They don't snatch offers, but they kind of start pulling them away and then not making those guys a priority. And that's why you see a lot of guys on signing day switch, because somebody beat them to the punch. There are numeric consequences that come along and that are attached with building your roster. Just go look at it. Look at how many years the guys left under contract. That's why there's over the cap and spot track. That's why those sites are so popular, because you get the glimpse, like, okay, what's there, and teams have to take that into consideration, just like they take player development into consideration. They have to do all of that. I'll just tell you like this. A couple of years ago, when the Bengals took Daxton Hill and everybody was like, what are they doing? They knew Jesse Bates was going to be they couldn't afford him after that one more year. He was that good. So they had to get somebody in there just in case it went that way, which it did. And then they plugged Daxton Hill right in to Jesse Bates' spot. That's the way this is supposed to go. In a perfect world, we wouldn't be talking about the Jaguars having to possibly look for a starting tackle if Walker Little had developed the way that, and there's somebody heard yesterday that said the Jaguars did him dirty. No, they didn't. If they wanted Walker Little to be good, man, he probably just ain't as good as everybody else thinks he is. But that's the way this is supposed to go. So there's a difference between thinking that just because a guy is an early contributor, that doesn't mean he's going to keep contributing or can continue to get better. There's also this thing that people have to match what you are doing offensively or defensively. And I don't care what anybody tells you. You watch Aiden Hutchinson, and you'll see Aiden Hutchinson struggle with certain things that the Jaguars asked Trayvon Walker to do. The Jaguars, there's people over there in that building that believe Aiden Hutchinson, all he got is a spin move. And just about 80% of the sacks, he's had a spin move or he's been unblocked. There are people that believe that if he was playing in Jacksonville and Jacksonville asked him to do certain things, he would not be as effective. He might still have more sacks than Trayvon, but he wouldn't be effective. But I do think that if Trayvon played in Detroit, he'd be effective. So here's what you have to understand. Teams aren't just drafting guys, and they're not monolithic where you're going to draft them and get the same thing out of all of them. They want guys that can do a lot of stuff, but they want players that have when they see players, let me say want players. I'm going to tell you like this. When they see players that have specific traits that are above the X's and O's that they want, way beyond their expectations of what they consider normal, they'll go, we just got to have it. And I'm telling you, that's what they did with Walt. That's what they did. They saw him, and they knew that everybody up there thought he was the best player on the defense that won the national championship. And everybody at the combine heard players say, nah, he's the best team. Hell, they asked, Trayvon's been in the league 2 years. They asked Brock Bowers, who's the best player you ever played against at your college, and he said, without hesitation, Trayvon Walker. So they're saying we need that brute with us. We need that big country, strong dude that comes from that background. We need that on our team and in our DNA. And and that's not saying that Hutchinson isn't great and doesn't come from a great family. That's not the point. The point is how many offensive coordinators from the SEC. I know two of them that's older friend of mine. Trayvon's the best player on the team. This is before the draft. So maybe that is a part of it why you have to think about who you are and think about your longevity as opposed to thinking about, we need sacks, so we'll get the guy who gets more sacks this year. No, that's not the way it works. And whether or not we want it to work that way or not, that's just not how it absolutely goes. I'll tell you this, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, man, third and final segment of Locked On Jaguars coming up. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what I think is missing from this team. I'm going to tell you what I think is missing from this team. And you might have to then go, well, does that affect what you think they should do this year? I'll tell you why it don't even matter. And I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. And now I want to let you know about our sponsor, eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. We cover who should the Jags target. My guy, if he's sitting there, it'll be very, very hard for me to pass up within reason, is Quinyon Mitchell. We also discussed the difference between building for a year and not for the future, and why that isn't always just cut and dry. There's a gray area in there, and I think the teams that get it right find that gray area. Also, what is missing, and that's what we're going to discuss now. We're going to discuss what is missing off of this team. The Jaguars have two very young, good players in the aforementioned Trayvon Walker and Anton Harrison, right? They have addressed those trenches very well with young players. They have a promising player in Antonio Johnson, the safety that they drafted just last season out of Texas A&M. Everyone else on the team, with the exception of ATN, who's the running back, the quarterback, of course, Trevor Lawrence. Everyone else, I would probably include Cisco in that, as well as Tyson Campbell, but those guys will both be potential free agents next year. But everyone else, they're an offensive player, like I just mentioned, the quarterback or the running back, or down in the trenches, right? They also have heavy investments at linebacker, and I will go over there myself and fight them if they drafted a linebacker in the first 2 or 3 rounds, even though there's some real good linebackers in this draft. That's just not the way that I would probably go. They need an infusion of youth, in my opinion, in their middle three. Now, they like Cooper Hodges on the offensive line, but the middle three, and the reason why I say that, I know Luke Fortin is young, but I just don't think Luke Fortin is very good. And, they went out and got Mitch Morse this year. It would be real nice for me if they were able to, at some point, address something from guard to guard, right? Then infuse in some a young left tackle who really has development skills, where you don't have to go out and get another player. You can ride out with Cam if you want to, and then you see enough, you can move Anton Harrison over, and then maybe you can just get this big. You can get a kid like the kid Cleveland drafted last year from Ohio State. Just get a big, promising dude at right tackle. I don't think those things have to necessarily be addressed on day 1 or day 2, but they need to do it. So when I say what's missing, that doesn't mean that needs to be the first thing that they grab. And y'all have heard me say that and stuff like that before. Like when we get to free agency, folks like the biggest need on the team is wide receiver. Well, it doesn't mean it has to be the first thing that you address. You don't have to address the biggest need first because you may not have the wherewithal to do that. There were some people that first thing we need to address is a center. This year was like, we need a center. That's all. We need center. They addressed it, but and everybody's satisfied with it, but it just might not be the biggest signing of all of them. So while something can be a priority, the way that this works is you don't know what's coming. It's almost like playing poker. If you're sitting there and you got 2 jacks, ooh, I'd love another jack, and they turn that flop over, there's 3 cards. It didn't show up. It might show up on the 4th or the 5th card, and it makes your whole hand, but it doesn't mean that it's the first thing you have to see or the first thing you have to do. So the reason why I chose Quinyon Mitchell is because he is unlike anybody else that they have on their roster right now. He is young. He is tough. He is, and granted, Tyson Campbell isn't old. He's not old, but you've seen him now for 3 seasons. I got a feeling if they draft Quinyon Mitchell, he'll be the best defensive back they have on this team. And that is exactly what I'm looking for. Every DB I say that about that I think has a first-round grade does not carry that distinction. This is my personal opinion. All right? I've come full circle. He was my favorite corner at first. I kind of pulled back, and I'm rooting for Terry on because I know a guy that trained him in high school and is still in touch with him, my man Corn Dog. And I like Kool-Aid because he was always a 5-star recruit, and I like him a lot too. And my grandson, his nickname's Kool-Aid, and if they take Kool-Aid, I get a good gift from my grandson. My grandson gets to go to the game with Kool-Aid jersey on. All that doesn't. I don't feel the same way about any of those dudes. I like Wiggins. I like Nate, but everybody keeps talking about Nate don't tackle. I don't want Nate to come in here and have to prove he gonna tackle people because every time he misses a tackle, it's gonna come up, right? The one guy I have no question about. And the one guy I absolutely do believe that if they take him, he'd be the best player on their unit is Quinyon Mitchell. So therefore, they need another dog that they got in the draft. They didn't go out and sign him, didn't give him a whole bunch of money. They need that guy. He's chippy. He probably his whole entire career thought he was under-recruited and didn't get what he deserved. And he just plays with such balance, calm, and coolness. He just reminds me, and I'm going to date myself here, he reminds me of Chris Dishman. I think he adds a real solid foundation outside. I think he gives this team that jolt. Now, let me tell you, everybody who wants a wide receiver, there will be a real good wide receiver at number 48 because there are a bunch of them in this draft. And I'm telling you, I can name 6, 7 guys that I think are going to be around. One of them is Javon Baker. I think that's exactly what you do because to me, Javon Baker, I believe is going to end up a number 1 receiver way sooner than people think. And guess what he's going to be? He's going to be the offensive version of Quinyon Mitchell. When you think about the type of player I like for my team, and you look at those 2 players, those are the 2 types of guys because you know what they love? They love the work. They're physical. They're technicians, but they also got this little thing. Now, guy, you want to play that game, you push me, I'm going to hit you back. I love guys like that. So I think if you get a team full of them, you'll have a team full of guys with wig traits. Before I leave here today, let me go to some of these questions. And hopefully I answer some of these questions. I marked some of them down here. Somebody, Chris Rett goes, if Trent gets a bona fide wide receiver 1 and hits on picks the rest of the draft, does this smooth over his wrongs of the past? Damn right it does, at least for the time being, right? That's exactly what will happen. All right, that's a good question too, by the way. Someone says, what's the best sign for the Jaguars? We get conditioned to losing by stupidity. What's the best sign for the future? Jimmy Jags, you said something about stupidity. I think I got real stupid trying to read that. I don't have one idea what the hell you talk about. So I love you too, man. You know you're my dog. Mad Love 777 says if Bowers falls to 17, should the Jags consider taking him or trade down? You got to get out of there. You've already committed too much. And he says Doug Peterson ran too tight in the system. I get it, and I think Bowers is great. But this is why I say you got to watch who you give a whole bunch of money to, because then something like that comes up and you can't do it because of the team building aspect again. Jay Rand said, at this point, would you rather try and trade up for wide receiver 1 or shop pick 17 for Higgins, Ayuk, or a Hail Mary boatload of picks for Justin Jefferson? Depends what the Hail Mary boatload of picks for Justin Jefferson is, but you probably have to talk me out of it if Justin Jefferson was available. I would give a whole bunch more than a whole bunch of people are comfortable with. So there. With the newfound, this is from Georgia Jaguar, with the newfound cap space after the Josh Allen deal, what do you think the Jags should do other than re-sign some of their own guys? I think I just answered that today. There you go. So I'm gonna ride with that. Those are the questions. Those are the hot questions. Those are the real good ones too. But they can be real difficult, man. And folks they want you to probably tell them more than you're willing to. I'll never lie to you. I might lie on you, but I won't lie to you. Right? I won't lie about this either. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, like me, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And you guys can catch me again tomorrow, and it'll be some more fire coming out of Locked On Jaguars. Until then, y'all take care. Bye-bye.